Hey, welcome to the time of the solar eclipse. Today is June 10th. We had a solar eclipse this morning. Unless you were some of our followers in Greenland or northern Canada, you probably didn't see it. But boy, we're feeling it. I'd like to focus this time on just a few things. Most importantly is solar eclipse, sun and moon in Gemini, always a new moon. Solar eclipses are a certain kind of new moon that happens every 6 months. And then Mercury is also ruling planet of Gemini. It's also in Gemini, conjunct the sun and moon, and retrograde. I know how much all you people out there on your computers love looking forward to Mercury retrograde. You're like, oh boy, this is great. I love having Mercury retrograde on my smartphone. Um, because, and I'm being sarcastic here, because Mercury, the winged messenger, is all about communication and speed and being in the moment and this sort of thing. And this society that most of us live in most of the time is just full of that. And those of us who are ruled by Mercury are most of the people. If you're sun, moon, or rising in Gemini or Virgo, you are ruled by Mercury. Also, if your sun is or moon or rising is conjunct Mercury, then that is a very strong influence. Since Mercury doesn't get very far from the sun, it's probably conjunct the sun half the time. So about 90% of everybody has a strong Mercury vibration in there. And Mercury in most times brings us speed, brings us communication, brings us clarity of thought, and so forth. But Mercury in Gemini and retrograde, well, that's a whole nother being. So let's back up a little bit and talk about the eclipses and then weave Mercury into the picture. Eclipses happen when the sun, moon, and earth line up. And if it's a solar eclipse where the sun gets blotted out by the moon. But or perhaps, as in the case that we just had, the sun turns into a ring with the moon in the middle, and that's the annular eclipses, and that's the one that we just had. So don't worry, you didn't miss a total solar eclipse because there wasn't one. But on the other hand, the lunar eclipses, of which we just had one 2 weeks ago, that's when the sun, moon, and earth are in alignment, and the shadow of the earth shines on the moon. And so this brings up the emotional, intense feeling energy that really governs our lives. And any mammal worth its salt has water in our being. And there's arguments, oh, it's 70% or whatever. It varies from being to being and time of month to time of month, but basically we're full of water, and that water is electromagnetically charged, and we get pulled on by the moon. The moon changes signs every couple of days, changes phase every few days, and so what happens is this is the realm of change and the realm of fluctuation in our own lives. If there's just one thing to look at with astrology, follow the moon signs, follow the moon phases. So the new moon is a phase of new beginnings, and the dark moon is the ending phase that happens right before the new moon. So the last few days, June 7th, 8th, 9th, we had a balsamic moon, a dark moon, and with the sun, moon, and earth coming into alignment. And it was a very agitated time. I was at a farm yesterday giving readings, and the rooster would not stop. It's an agitated time for animals, for humans, for any carbon-based life form here on Earth that has water moving through it. And so the time right before any new moon is a time of emotional completion and going into the dark side and really recessing into ourselves. And then the new moon is a time of rebirth and new beginnings. This particular lunation, because it's an eclipse, is that even more so. And so Sun and Moon in Gemini, it's almost the summer solstice, but it's not yet. Gemini has to do with duality, expansion, and variety in all things. Mercury is also in Gemini, as I mentioned, and that's the ruling planet. So what's happening is Mercury is moving this way, backwards. Sun and Moon are moving this way, forward. So today, June 10th, as we're recording, today they're all in the same degree for a few hours, and connection of mind and heart, of mental acumen with emotions. It's a great time to start things. However, let's look at Mercury retrograde. In this day and age, people have a hard time with Mercury retrograde, but you only have a hard time with it if you're online, on your cell phone, trying to communicate electronically with anyone. If you're just in nature, if you're planting your garden or whatever, don't worry about Mercury retrograde. Mercury in Gemini will be a very stimulated time, and this has been going on for weeks now and continues for another month because Mercury, the retrograde. And during the retrograde time, the affairs of Mercury seem to come undone. It's a time of communication breakdown. It's a time of, computers and cell phones and things like that malfunctioning. I lost a computer this morning. There was also separately a surge of electricity in one of my other houses. And in this micromanaged solar system that I have here, I can notice these things. But anyway, so Mercury's moving backwards, and between the end of last month and summer solstice, June 22nd, Mercury is retrograde. And Mercury, in this case, it's very, and this is really important. It's like, yeah, Gemini, variety is the spice of life. But the catch right now is that we're at an extremely overstimulated time mentally with pretty much an inability to focus. At the same time, that's a power time. So there is a kind of an antsiness in the air, mental desire to initiate, to do everything right now. And Mercury retrograde, as many people know, is not the best time to initiate these new enterprises. I was talking about, it's a good time to start something, but I mean like a garden or a dialogue or something like that. If you want to sign paperwork, if you want to start your website or whatever, you should wait a week because Mercury retrograde is not a good time for those things. And what's going to happen is Mercury will come out of retrograde, slow down to a stop. And don't forget, there's a stationary period for any of these retrograde planets where they're just not moving. And that'll happen for a few days as of this weekend. And then it comes out at the summer solstice. And that's when we really should jump on it and take action. But right now, all of you are probably feeling really stimulated and feeling this sense of wanting to communicate or take action or do this really important thing right now. And that's because of the eclipse. But the Mercury retrograde makes it a little dicey unless you happen to be a Mercury retrograde person, as I am, and you're also dealing with other Mercury retrograde people. If you're dealing with normal society, the 80% that are not Mercury retrograde, a lot of brain melt right now. So I only wanted to focus on these things in this particular talk because there's so much information right now, so much variety, and I notice that people do not take it in if there's too much. And that's the measure of what's going on right now. So I'm going to actually say, hey, Neptune is also stimulating right now. It's actually in square with all these Gemini planets, but it's a good time to take stock, to meditate, to sink in and go, okay, what is my true feeling right now? And what do I want to project in the next month? And then starting a week, less than a week from now, we have summer solstice, the high period of the year. And we're right now, we're kind of in a vegetative place. We're not in the place of like the harvest or whatever. And then we're moving into the time of the flowers, and symbolically in terms of our own nurturement for the whole year. And so, good luck to all you. This is a good time to plan, to organize, and to kind of mull things over rather than take the immediate action on it. We're stimulating to take that action, but don't worry, that part will get better. In related news, just after Mercury completes its retrograde and comes out of it, I will be doing an Astro Talk, an Astro Play Day here at Living Well. And this is kind of my way of coming out of the woodwork post-pandemic, although we're not post-pandemic, but, we're going to be a small outside group of about 12 participants. And I would love to see you there. I don't do astrological play days more than once a year, so I would love to have good attendance and have people come in. Overnight is welcome. Contact me for the details. And besides that, good time to get a reading. I'm purposely not talking about everything right now because it'll go right past you. I'd like to focus on each one of you individually because each one of you has your own path, your own road, your own values that we'll be working with. So, thank you for listening. Share with your friends. Subscribe to this here Arius News, and I'd love to hear from you. So, happy summer.